So, it goes like this. We were in the Cold War with Russia, and the Russians wanted easy access to nuke America. And the Cubans, they were oppressed by this dictator for a really long time. And then communism looked like really attractive. So like what happened was, they overtook the Cuban government, and this other dictator named Fidel Castro, they overtook the government and made themselves a communist nation. This scared America because we were capitalists, and we want everybody else to be capitalist too, so they're not a threat to us. So as soon as Cuba became communist, we're all like, ah! And then that was bad enough. So we attempted to do the Bay of Pigs invasion, where we trained Cuban mercenaries to go attack Cuba and retake Cuba. But what happened was one of the mercenaries was a spy, and they went and they told the Cubans what we were doing, and then the Cubans knew we were coming, and then they like destroyed us. So that made people really biased against Kennedy. But anyway, so we got communist Cuba, and they're really ticked off at the Americans, and the Americans are ticked off at them because they're communists. And so while we're freaking out about other things like civil rights and things like that, the communists go in and they deliver missiles to Cuba, which we have no idea about. We had no idea. And then all of a sudden, we're flying over Cuba, spying on them like usual, and we find missiles down at these bases. And so the CIA comes back to the president, and he's like, "Dude, they got missiles." The president's like, "They have missiles." So they got together and they're like, "What do we do?" And so one guy's like, "I've got an idea. Let's invade Cuba and destroy their missiles." And the other guy's just like, "We can't invade Cuba and destroy their missiles. They'll nuke Berlin." And then the other guys are like, "Yeah, but if we don't do something, they're gonna nuke us." And the other guys are like, "Well, we can't just go to nuclear war without thinking about this." So like, they got all like really, really mad, and the president was really confused about what to do. And they had all these kinds of meetings, and they got together and they talked for a really long time. We were trying to keep this undercover from the American public, but it wasn't very easy because the press, there were inside sources in the White House. Everything they were trying to do was undercover, and they didn't want the American people to know that the Cubans could nuke us just like that. In my personal opinion, if I would have been there at the time, I would have probably said we should go ahead with an invasion in Cuba. It's a good thing we didn't, because if we had gone along with the Cuban invasion, I might not be here. Neither would you. But, back to what I was saying earlier, they were trying to keep this like low-key undercover from everybody else. And we needed more pictures to find out, what more detail about what the Cubans were doing. So we looked at Cuba from a lower level so we could see more detail of what they were doing. While we were doing that, they shot at us like seriously hardcore. And we almost got shot down, but we did the first time. The first time we didn't get shot down, and the pilots came back and they told the president's secretary what had happened. Not the president's secretary, the president's first right-hand man. Right. We told him what had happened, and he told them not to tell anybody that they got shot at, because if we get shot at, that means that it's war. Whoever fires the first. Anytime shots are fired, that signifies war. So we wanted to keep that a secret, so we kept that a secret for a long time. Anyways, there were still meanwhile in Washington, there was still this big conflict over what we should do. Should we attack Berlin? Should we blockade them? Should we blockade Cuba from any, did I say attack Berlin? I meant attack Cuba, sorry. Because we don't want them to attack Berlin. Anyway, so what we decided was we were going to blockade Cuba so the Russians couldn't send any more nuclear missiles to Cuba. So we thought about it for a long time. We finally decided, well, we don't have to attack, we don't have to negotiate for right now. Let's just do a blockade so they can't send any more missiles to Cuba. So they organized a Navy blockade, which they really called a quarantine, because if they called it a blockade, that's an act of war, and they were really trying to avoid war as much as possible. So they quarantined Cuba with these Navy ships, and then when the Russians came later on, well, I'll tell you about that later. Anyways, finally they had this meeting with a representative from Russia and in the UN. So there was all these countries around to witness what was happening. And we asked Russia, do you have functional missiles in Cuba? And they kept denying it, and we kept asking them and saying, we have the proof, we have the proof. But they kept denying it. Finally, we had an official meeting with the U.S. representative and the Soviet representative, and they talked it out, and they finally decided that if they took the nuclear weapons out of Cuba, that we would take the nuclear weapons out of Turkey. This had been an idea proposed a lot earlier, but it wasn't for sure yet because the president was hesitant to take our missiles out of Turkey. We really didn't want to take our missiles out of Turkey. But eventually we realized we had to anyways, because we were going to in 6 months. So we told the Soviets that we'd take the missiles out of Turkey in 6 months anyway. So we negotiate this deal, and basically the story ends okay. But for a while there, if you don't know any better, like if you don't know the history, you would think that we were gonna attack Cuba, because like that's what they made it seem like. Going on to the technical aspects of this movie, it was a pretty good movie, I thought. It was a little bit melodramatic in places. There definitely could have been more action sequences, less political chit-chat, but being that it was an educational video, it was probably better that it had more political debate to educate people on what really goes on in Congress and the White House. Something unique about this movie was it switches back and forth between color and black and white. I wasn't very big fan of the black and white scenes because instead of having like quick cuts, which means you zoom in on one particular person from different angles and give a tone of seriousness, whenever the black and white came on, like the camera just moved around and it was like not like this. And it wasn't a good thing, to put it that way. It didn't add dramatic effect, in my opinion. If they would have done it in a better way, if they would have used quick, serious cuts, then it would have made it a better movie. I think the director did a good job with selecting the cast to give a good seriousness, but the person who played the president's right-hand man, terrible Boston accent. I think I went over pretty much the basic summary of the movie, what I thought of it. Overall, I think it was an okay movie. I wouldn't choose to watch it again. It wasn't too great. It was too melodramatic for me. A movie that I do like that's political is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and that's like political, but it's also not melodramatic. Like it's political, yet it's exciting at the same time. I don't really know how to describe it. But thanks for watching my video. I really hope this gets an A. So yeah. The end.